we wanted to start out with you reading a passage from the book that's quite representative, I think.
Well, you know, if you don't have a sense of humor and you're a sex symbol, you know, it's just all over for you. And so that's one of the reasons why I named my book Beyond the Cleavage, because I wanted to have fun. You know, everybody knows the famous fur bikini shot, right? So I put it right up here in the front. You remember her? Lawana, Queen of the Shell People. Yes. You know, the first day I started out on this movie, I went to the director, Don Chaffee, and I said, Don, I've been studying the script, and I've been thinking. And he said, you've been thinking? Well, don't. You see that rock over there? That's rock A. Now this over here is rock B. When I call action, start at rock A, run to rock B. When you get in the middle, envision you see a giant turtle coming over the hill. You scream, and we break for lunch. Have you got that? Oh, I got it all right. That was the kind of the life it was as a sex symbol. You weren't supposed to think or do or say anything, just look good. So anyway, this was a lady that rocketed me to fame, and I was very grateful. And one of the reasons I was so grateful is because I was a single mother of 2 small kids, and this was a big break for all 3 of us. So if you can picture this same poster girl with a stroller in this hand and a toddler on this hip, then you have the real picture of what I was living, as opposed to the fantasy that everybody thought I was. So, of course, I had to write this book to straighten things out. And there's one passage I found in chapter 1 that I think kind of describes a little bit of something that will explain the title in a different way. So, Mommy became the reigning sex symbol of the swingin' 60s and 70s, at the height of the sexual revolution, with one hitch. A sex symbol in the age of flower children didn't sit well with the hard-lined feminists of the time. They dismissed me as nothing more than a sex object. They didn't look beyond, beyond, the poster image, the cleavage. They didn't look beyond the image, the poster image, to see what I was made of. It felt like a slap, until I realized that official feminism had a political agenda that is not inclusive of all women. It's only for those who fit a certain criterion, which does not include a bikini. So be it. And so that's a passage that if you have questions about, maybe
Yes.
we'll log those in later.
Actually, you're going to be getting some cards, so please, any questions that you have over the next little while, they're going to come up and down the aisles and collect your cards so that Raquel will be able to answer them. But this period of time looked very different than the way it felt. The image of you on this poster and this very glamorous and so on, but it was really not that kind of existence for you at all.
Well, I was going through a kind of, I think that when you're a mother and a very young mother, I was 19 when I had my first baby, and my son Damon, and then followed by my daughter Tawny. I got married to my high school sweetheart, Jim Welch. And, you know, when you're a mother, there's a feminine instinct in you that really cries out for you to play the role of mother, you know, quite seriously in life. And so for me to have this crazy existence as a sex symbol, because that's how Hollywood saw me, and have to have my kids with a nanny, and I'm on the top of a volcano shooting this caveman movie, it was, you know, it made life rather difficult for me, because in fact, you know, you carry around a lot of guilt.
Yes. How did you...
You feel, you know, you feel that you're not living up to the
The roles.
the nurturing role that you need to play for those children, and you know that they're not getting what they need.
Yes.
And so that kind of weighs heavily, it's a burden all the time that's sort of heavy on your shoulders. Well, gee, the rest of the world thought I must have the world, the whole thing by the tail. They thought I was living a fantasy existence. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. How did you cope with those feelings of guilt while you were trying to work and?
Well, there wasn't a lot I could do because when you're in the film business, you're working 16, 17 hours a day, and you work 6 days a week if you're on location, which the period that I became a star in, that was the time when everything was on location. You didn't really make a lot of movies on sound stages. You really went to the actual location, and that's what you shot, and you're often using daylight. And so you shoot 6 days a week. So as soon as I made the commitment to my career, and that was another big choice I had to make, Gail, because I married a young man who I was very in love with. I think that somewhere, in your heart of hearts, your first love, and that feeling that you have about that particular young man is something that is so indelible in your mind that it's a kind of reference point for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And I was a dyed-in-the-wool romantic because I didn't feel that my mother really had the kind of romantic life that I wanted. So I was bound and determined I was going to have.
So your parents' marriage, you tried to choose something very different, really, in a certain way.
Yes, because I felt that my mother and father, who were very good parents in a way, didn't have the kind of love that I wanted in my life. I felt that, that my mother was missing out. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to be with a man who is very domineering and very exacting and difficult to please. And
so you chose a man who was quite smitten with you, very.
Yeah, and I'm calling him a man, but he was like, when I met him, I was 15, 16 years old, so we were just kids. And I was very headstrong and romantic, as I said. I was studying classical ballet, and I wanted to be a ballerina. So I was all, I was in a fantasy world, and then I got my dream. I ended up in a fantasy world, but then I had
being the fantasy.
Then there was the reality all the time, and fortunately, we all lived through it. But it was, it meant that I was a schizophrenic existence in a way.
Do you think at the time that this was going on, that you had this one existence as, mom and this marriage that you were struggling with and so on, and at the same time being this, loincloth sex symbols?
Well, I had already left my first husband when I pursued the career, yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, Gail. But, when I start kind of in the beginning where I grew up in San Diego, and my father was an engineer, an aeronautical engineer. He came to this country from Bolivia. He was an immigrant from Bolivia, and met my mother at the University of Illinois, and she was a very nice Midwestern young lady who graduated from college, and her father was an architect, and my father's ambition was to work in space and aircraft, and so after they got married, we ended up in San Diego, where there was a lot of aircraft factories, and of course it was during the war, because I was born in 1940.
Yes. And so that's not what he ended up doing, is that correct? Is that
what?
That what your father wanted to be in this, but he was disappointed? He was
disappointed? No, he wasn't disappointed in America.
Okay.
He was all for it. No, but
you describe him as sort of loving in some ways and a difficult father in other ways.
Oh yes, he was very demanding, and he was a hard taskmaster, and he was just somebody that we wanted to avoid because he had a really lousy temper.
Yes.
He was really quite, he was a little scary.
So it was scary at
Yeah,
times.
it was scary. It was kind of difficult too.
And you could see it was scary for your mother as well, it sounds.
Yes, she was totally intimidated by him, and I could see that dynamic. and it used to bother me a lot. I resented it very much. And, you know, just watching them and at the same time wanting to please my father.
Yes.
Because it was really conditional love. I had to do something. I had to get perfect grades. I had to do everything perfectly. And, you know, that as opposed to watching my mother be under his thumb and kind of acquiesce to him all the time. It was very, you know, it gave me two messages again.
Yes.
One, I want to please this guy, but boy, he's really a piece of work, and somewhere I don't like it.
Yes.
And why is he pushing my mother so hard? And will he stop it? And why doesn't she do something about it?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think it partially drove you to choose the career that you did? That you're very driven, and to succeed and
Well, I wrote
with
it
a lot of
when I
ambition?
wrote here, and it's very true. I just didn't like reality in our house. I didn't like the reality in my home, and I was looking for another reality, and I wanted to escape into a place that I could go and I could control, and that was the world of my imagination. And so that's where I went. And and that's why, in the end, I wanted to be an actress, because I wanted to get as far away from reality as I possibly could.
So an escape into the movies, into something,
Well,
some altered
yeah.
place.
Well, I really thought I would be a stage actress at one point. I thought I'd be a dancer first, and I wrote about that and how I was in love with my ballet, and my dad took me to see the Red Shoes, and I was, you know, smitten with Morris Shear, like I'm sure millions of young girls were.
Yes.
And again, she was caught up feverishly in those red toe shoes that she wore,
Right.
and she went, you know, to her death even. She was so obsessed with dance, and I was totally into that. I was ready, you know. I
To
was
sacrifice
I was
for
caught
your
up. I
craft,
was caught
yeah.
up in that kind of passion, and so that's where I went with it. I just wanted to escape into
Passionate
into fantasy.
fantasy
So
land.
no wonder, you know, I ended up like that. It's funny how when you want something in life, you always, if you really want it, you always really get it, and then you have to look at it and see really what it
Is that what I
in
really want?
reality.
Do you think, so along the way, in those, say, early years, did it seem to be what you wanted? Did it seem to be the fantasy that you were hoping for, or was
Well,
it?
No, it was, none of it was at all what I imagined. But I kept thinking that I would open a door and there it would be, you know. I thought, well, you know, maybe it's not the way I think it should be now, but that's because it's just the beginning. And, you know, as soon as I get to the next door and I open that door, you know, better things will be there, and I'll feel more comfortable and more accomplished, and I'll be doing the kind of artistic things that I imagined I would do. And all of the heroines and the idols that I had from the movies as a young girl, those kind of ideas will be realized, but it didn't really. You know, there was a lot of disappointment from the very get-go, because when I came to Hollywood, Hollywood wasn't even Hollywood anymore. You know, it was the 60s, and I think that the 50s was the last time in Hollywood that they really had the old-fashioned Hollywood glamour, that they had the musicals with Marilyn Monroe and the wonderful movies that we think of when we think of movies, at least the movies I think of, you know, finishing off in the 50s. And they say that the golden age of cinema is between 1935 and 1945. And so we got through a little more of the 50s. And you know, we had Doris Day, and we had Marilyn Monroe, and we had Cary Grant, and we had...
And were these people that you looked up to?
Rock Hudson.
You idolized.
Yeah, I did. I thought they were, I wanted to entertain, too. I wanted to make people happy. And So in a way, it was terribly naive of me, but I think it was, I don't know, I think I have a kind of a full-bodied enthusiasm for things that I like, and I can't be dissuaded.
And you were really very passionate, but your parents, it sounds like, in ways that didn't work so well for you, but they were also passionate, that your father was driving and driven, and that this...
Well, he didn't have any ideas for me to be an actress. That was my idea.
Okay.
But whatever it was, I mean, the grades in school,
Yes.
the good diction, the good vocabulary, you know, perfect grooming, perfect manners, those kind of things were terribly important. And, you know, being a lady and
How did
that
you
kind
feel
of,
about your being a sex symbol?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was fun. Yeah, when I was a child, I wanted to be an actress, and so my mother enrolled me in a children's theater, which was part of the Old Globe Theater in San Diego. Oh gosh, have you got questions already?
Oh, there are going to be questions, yes.
And
They'll bring them up.
okay, and where was I?
So I wondered how your father felt about your being a sex
Oh,
symbol.
yes. And so, you know, my father kind of thought, I think, at one point that I was going to graduate from the children's theater, which I started at 7, into maybe Shakespearean roles.
Is that what he wanted for you? He wanted to
no,
see you...
but yeah, well, one of the first movies he took me to see was Hamlet with Laurence Olivier.
Oh.
And so he was into the classics, and then, of course, there was Maurice Shear and Tales of Hoffmann and The Red Shoes. So, again, the classics. And so that's what he, I think, had in mind, is that he didn't think I was going to be an actress at that point. He had no idea that I would, you know, that's what I would be. But he was trying to interest me in what he thought was quality.
Acting.
You know, well, quality, not just acting. I mean, he wasn't taking me to see Betty Grable, is
Right.
what I mean.
The
He
arts,
was taking
the
me to see
arts,
Laurence Olivier
Right.
and Maurice Shear. So there were two that, you know, his taste was very classic and very, and my taste was, yeah, I thought that was beautiful, but I also liked Betty Grable
Yeah.
and Elvis Presley and
So you
Marilyn
were
Monroe.
admiring of these sort of earlier sex symbols.
Well, yes, and before that time, Rita Hayworth, but also Betty Davis and Katharine Hepburn and Rosalind Russell, and just so many movie stars that I thought were fantastic, and you know.
So when this poster came out, how did you feel, and how did your father react?
Well, that was the question, wasn't it? So, yeah, I was in the Canary Islands when I made that movie, and
Okay.
It was a British production. So when I finally got home from Europe, and I saw my dad again, and by that time I had been abroad for a number of years, and because as the film industry was there, he came to my house in Beverly Hills, and he walked in, and I said, "So, what do you think?" He said, "Yeah, I told you should have studied Shakespeare." And I thought, yeah, well, what can you do? You know, that's my dad.
Yeah.
You know?
So it
Never happy.
he remained daunting in some ways.
Well, you know, I knew it was impossible to please him.
Yeah.
You know, he would never be happy with anything. Nothing would ever be good enough. And, you know, that's the way I think he made my mother feel. But by that time, I didn't really care so much. And I had kind of forgiven him for being an asshole.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you, a lot of people would like to know how you did that, because there are people that spend their whole lives unable to forgive their parents for being
Yeah,
that.
I know that. I don't know. At one point, I kind of recognized something in him, and I write about it in the book because when I was a teenager, I had a big confrontation with him. It was a very strong one, in which I actually threatened his life, and in defense of my mother, and he backed down. He backed away, and in that moment, I kind of saw his vulnerability. And I suddenly saw somebody who had tried terribly hard, you know. He came to this country when he was 17. I mean, he had to plan that. He got into an American university. He did exactly what he had planned for himself. He became an aeronautical engineer and worked in space. And, you know, he had a dream and he accomplished it. And I saw somebody who came from a third world country and spoke a different language and changed himself all around just to be an American.
Yeah.
And it affected me a lot. And I saw that he had tried terribly hard. And he thought that he was doing something great by, you know, coming to this country, and that his children would be born here and have all this opportunity to do so many things. And I saw that, you know, he was not satisfied with himself. And I don't know, I felt sorry for him.
You
And
saw
so,
his vulnerability.
yes, I
that
did.
He did the best that he could.
And I think he thought he was doing the best and the right thing. I think that's what he honestly thought. And I could see that, and I sympathized with him, and I forgave him and thought, you know, it's okay, Dad. You know, it's really okay.
But clearly you had a certain resilience, even as a child, to bounce back, to fight back, to, I
Yes.
mean, it's unusual for a daughter to take up for her mother and, you know, literally fight with her father. And so you were always sort of, you had some sort of inner strength to push back, to fight, and that seems to have aided you later in your career.
Yeah,
to
you
be
know,
a fighter.
it's funny kind of how you do. I identified with my mother, but then when the dominant and power figure is the father, you identify with the father too for survival. So,
But
you
there
know,
were things about your mother.
And so I got things from my father, and I got things from my mother.
Right.
And I was like my mother in the fact that I wanted to be very accommodating with men, but only if they were nice. If they were going to be mean, then they were going to have big trouble. If they were just mean.
So you wanted to be treated well.
Yeah, I felt like, you know, you have to hold on to your self-respect and you have to stand up for yourself. But if they were fairly decent, then, you know, I mean, boys, men, nothing against you, of course. I mean, you know, I love you, but, you know, the battle of the sexes just carries itself on and on and on, and it's just ever fascinating. I've been married 4 times. I will never give advice about what to do.
I was going to say, what?
Yeah, somebody
can you
asked
tell
me
us
about
about your-
Sandra Bullock today. They said, and what advice? I went, please, I'm married 4 times, not one of them worked. I mean, I have no person to give advice.
Do you feel that's true, that not one of them worked, or do you feel they worked for a time, they ran their
Well,
course?
see, I don't believe in marriage for a time. That's just old-fashioned of me, I know. It's archaic, really, but I just felt like when I was getting married for the last time, to my first husband in particular, so the time in which I suddenly realized that he did not want me to have a career was a terrible moment for me. And I do write about all of these things, about the
Yes.
confrontation we had in detail. You know, that was one of the most difficult decisions I ever made in my life, was to take my 2 kids and leave the marriage and the love of my life and go and pursue my career. I felt like I had to. I couldn't not do it. And yet it was not what I wanted to do at the same time, so it was hard. It was really hard. And maybe because it was so hard, somehow it had to work.
You mean you feel that having sacrificed your marriage in a way,
Yes,
you were
exactly.
even more driven to make sure that
Well,
it was...
I just, you know, I hoped that it was the right choice because it was a choice that everybody warned me against, and there wasn't anybody that I knew of in Hollywood when I got to Hollywood that was a mother.
Really?
And starting out, you know.
So you were really in a unique spot.
I was
other
very,
women there-
very different from any of the other girls that were in the the auditions and waiting in the hallways. And I really was kind of a hybrid, and I just kept my mouth shut.
Did people treat you differently as a result?
No, they didn't know
They didn't
who
know.
I was. I just thought, you know what? They're into party, party hardy, and let's see who I can be with because it might help my career. And I was thinking, I don't think I can do that. It's just not right for me. And I have these 2 children, so I'll just keep my mouth shut, and I'll just keep my eyes open, and I'll work really hard at learning whatever I can about this business. Mm-hmm. And so if I had a job that was only one day, I would come all the other days, and people would say, "Oh, you don't have to be here until the Friday." And I'd say, "I know. If you don't mind, could I just watch?" And they would go, "Well, okay." And then they would see that I was coming all the time to watch, and they would they liked that.
Yes.
And they said, "Oh, so, she's trying to learn. She's really interested." Yeah. And so I had people that helped me because of that.
Mm-hmm. So you proved yourself in that way rather than
Well,
sort of social party.
No, well, the thing is that if you're a young girl and you have 2 children, you're dating people and going to parties with people, you don't want to have somebody that, you're not going to bring home some guy with your 2 kids at the apartment. I'm not anyway.
Some do, but you didn't.
Well, I don't know, but I can't speak for other women. I just, I just wouldn't want that kind of thing.
So you were cautious about that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to drag my kids through any kind of craziness. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did sacrifice, a lot of maybe things that I might have done if I'd been in a different situation, but I wasn't there to party. Mm-hmm. I was there to try to get work and try to get familiar with how it was done in the movie business. I really wanted to go to New York, but I didn't have the money for it, and I tried to save my money to go, and I wrote about that in the book, everything in the book.
How did you feel about the financial responsibilities of being the woman but working and with your 2 children?
I knew it was going to be tough, but at the same time, for some reason, I didn't think that was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be at all impossible. I figured, well, guys have to do that. They have to go out and they have to start somewhere and they have to learn, and they have to move up and they have to, make their way in the world. Why can't a woman do it?
So
I didn't think it was like a rough thing, but a lot of people did tell me, that I was a little nuts. They said, you're crazy. You're never going to make it. That's crazy. That's nutty.
Did you have supporters?
Not really. I mean, my mother and father were not against it, but it was my idea. And my father wasn't talking to me after I married Jim Welch anyhow.
So that was a terror. That was.
He really didn't like that
Falling out
idea. Oh, yeah. But he didn't, I never liked the boys that he liked me to like anyway.
Were any of your later husbands more along the lines of what your father?
Well,
would
I
have
never,
wanted?
no, once I left home, I wasn't going to take
That was
any of his stuff. No, I never cared whether he liked them or not. In fact, it was kind of fun if he didn't.
So there was certainly a rebellious streak.
No, I just chose, actually, men chose me. After the first time when I saw my husband, I knew the first second I saw him that I wanted to have his babies. I just went, that's it. Him. Oh, yeah, him.
There was just this instant attraction.
He was so gorgeous, and he had that thing. And I just instantly saw us as having beautiful kids and just having a fabulous life together. And I would not be dissuaded, I really wouldn't.
But at the time, he didn't know that you wanted this career. He really didn't.
Well, I think he did, but people don't take, I don't know what it is with teenagers. They don't take certain messages very seriously.
Yes.
To
say the least.
There's a lot of information being given, and you're just running right over it because there's something else going on with the hormones.
I was going to say called hormones, right?
Yeah.
So later.
And don't forget, that was the 50s. So none of us were very sophisticated, at least not in my high school, but,
So there's still a lot of discussions today about, can a woman have it all? And there are still many discussions about, where women are, moving through the glass ceiling,
yeah.
but still having, being children, often being the primary caretakers. How do you feel about that concept of can a woman have it all?
Well, can anybody have it all? I mean, it's always, yeah. It's not a conspiracy against women. It's just you can't have everything. You can have some things. You're going to have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like sometimes when we read about other people in the magazines, as I'm sure you've read things about me at certain times, especially when I was younger, that it looked like I had it all. And that's just, nobody has it all.
You make an excellent point in the book, which actually, as a psychiatrist, I'm often trying to point out to women that women in some ways get more choice, right? I mean, how many men feel that they can stay home with the children? In some ways you seem to point out that as a woman, you made certain choices, but that women perhaps do have choices that they get to make.
Yes, they have lots of choices they can make. I mean, we really have a lot of choices. We can be professional, we can be wife, we can be mother, we can be maybe try to do that juggling act, and now I think society is more accommodating to mothers who work in all kinds of different professions. Even in the movie business now, they have kind of, like mommy breaks and things like that, where somebody who has a young child can, go, visit the kids and play with them, and they can be on the set, in a separate trailer and things. And they didn't have that in my day at all.
So you really... you couldn't have the kids around. That was
well, I could have them around, but, I was working on the top of a volcano. It was lava rock everywhere. I mean, you're not going to bring your kids out to play on the razor-sharp lava. It's not a place for kids.
Right.
I mean, there was no way they could be up there. There was no place, and it was snowing.
So
they were down in the hotel with the governess, and then I would see them on my one day off. And it was like I felt, like heartbroken
so
when I would
difficult.
see them, because it would just like, and I would think, oh, gosh, oh,
It was really...
It was like heartbreaking, and you think, am I doing this right? I mean, am I not supposed to be doing this? Or am I supposed to be doing this? Is this the way? And I asked a pediatrician at one time, and he said, well, children are very resilient.
Okay.
And that sounded good to me. But of course it didn't prove to be true at all. Because kids, when you're growing up, these impressions that you have of things is just so important. And I came to realize that what some people might have called a difficult childhood, which my childhood was, I thought, difficult, was really not a difficult childhood. It was, yes, a very strict, bad-tempered father, but, I had both parents all those years. I had a mommy figure and a daddy figure, and they somehow stayed together and made nice,
Do you have regrets about the children and
I do.
that time?
Yes, of course I do. I do, and I've had to make retribution with my children. I'd had to sit down with them and ask for forgiveness and listen to their memories and recriminations and times when they felt, that I really wasn't there. And it's been very painful sometimes, but I knew after a certain point, I knew that day would come when we would sit across from one another and we would, just open up and talk about the hurtful moments and the painful things and the losses that we felt.
Yes.
And I can't say I enjoyed it, but I really felt that I wanted to go there because it was very draining, but it was necessary, and now I have a different relationship with them, and
So
they
you're able to-
understand me, and they understand what what I was doing and how I was, and that I did love them, but I made a certain choice, and that choice was maybe not the right one, but at that time, even if I hadn't made a choice for a career, I was really not equipped at 19 to have the maturity to be a mother. At least I, Raquel, was not equipped.
So
And,
they've come to understand, much in the way that you said, you came to understand something about your father, though you may not have liked the way he did certain things, that he tried given what he had available to him.
Yes, and I think that I understood my parents too, that parents aren't perfect and they try and they think they're doing the right thing. I thought, in a funny kind of way, even though I admit that it was self-serving to do what I did, I really did believe that by going out in this kind of valiant way and taking them with me, you know, like a lion with her cubs, that they were going to just be emboldened and really courageous in life, like, you know, and that they would get this spirit of going out and adventuring in the world, and I would give them that. That's not what happened exactly.
But you've come to an understanding with each other.
Yes, we have, and I think you need to do that with your family
Yes.
and those close to you.
Difficult to do, but very
Well,
important.
I think, yeah, some people don't want to ever communicate, but I think you have to cry sometimes and you just have to lay it out there
It's true.
because you love these people and you want them to be around and you want them to understand.
I would love to take some audience questions.
Yeah, okay.
So, the first one, you are so graceful. What opinion do you have of Hollywood today? What do you think of the roles that are written for women?
Oh, Hollywood today. Well, today, I don't think that there are a lot of roles just for interpersonal relationships. I don't think Hollywood's really interested in people and how they relate very much. They're more interested in men and machines.
Interesting.
But of course, we love Meryl Streep and how beautifully she plays so many different roles and what a chameleon she is as an actress. Those roles are wonderful and great, but she makes them great too.
Yes.
There are not that many of those roles, and she gets them all. And rightly so, because she's brilliant. But there are many beautiful actresses, Annette Bening and, I don't know, Helen Mirren, and so many. I would never be able to name them all. And even, very beautiful actresses that are still quite young, and Charlize Theron and Nicole Kidman, that do fabulous work. But there just isn't enough. I mean, when Bette Davis was having her heyday, and I sat next to Betty one time, and I said to her, Miss Davis. And she went, yes. And I said, I would give anything to have a fraction of the brilliance you had in even one of your movies in your career. And she said, yes. And it will never happen again. And she was right. And actually, Burt Reynolds sat on the other side of her. She was being given some big Lifetime Achievement Award. And she said the reason for that is that in her day, that they used to make 5 and 6 movies a year or more. And that now every actor had to be some kind of a producer to get a really fabulous project off the ground. She said, look at Dustin Hoffman. It takes him 4 years to get a project off the ground. So then there's 4 years of waiting around, and the public forgets about you. And where's your audience? Where's the continuity? And so I thought, well, yeah, she's right. Yeah. And so it's a little bit like that. I don't think that the golden age of Hollywood really exists, except for a very, very few people. We don't have as many as they did in those golden years.
What do you want to tell women and men younger than yourself about women, beauty, and age?
younger than myself, well, they're not going to care. No, I don't. Well, you know, I'm not sure that's 100% true. You do start lying about your age when you're 12. So, but I don't know. I kind of am ornery, and when I got to 40, I thought, you know what? They've been giving this a bum rap. 40 is not bad. 40 is kind of great. I feel good at 40. And it's when I finally felt like I got everything together and I was feeling comfortable in my own skin. I still looked great. I was doing this fabulous exercise program, and I was starring on Broadway and in a musical. And I was just having a fabulous time, and I thought, wow, you know, this is a great time. Why are they giving it a bum rap? But I don't know. I think it's a kind of a way for society to make women kind of obsolete in their prime, because, you know, we get to be a real handful after that because we know too much. And I just think that, I don't know, the older I get, the more I find out and learn about myself, and I have a different perspective of life and people and the world and my priorities. And I feel that it's a wonderful discovery every step of the way, and I just think life is such a gift that I'm ever excited about it. And the future, that's, you know, I guess I'm kind of a Pollyanna, but I'm very resilient, and I do get discouraged and I do get angry from time to time, but mostly, I don't know, I'm always hopeful and I'm always interested. So I think that's maybe why I
Great attitude about aging.
I don't
Like to follow that.
I find it's really great, and I'm looking forward to another 30 years.
That's great.
My mom lived to 93 and she never did any yoga, so I figured I'll buy another 7 with the yoga alone.
Tell us what it was like making your round-the-world TV special. Did you keep the white fringe costume?
The who?
The white fringe costume?
That one, yes. No, I didn't. Did I have that? I might have that costume in one of the trunks somewhere. We were in Mexico, like on one of the great, you know, mythical pyramids, Teotihuacan or something like that. Was it Let the Sun Shine In or something? Let the sun shine. Something. Yeah, I think head rolls.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Well, let's see here. What are your thoughts on Mira Breckenridge? And
Myra.
Sorry.
Gail.
Myra. Oh, my goodness. It's terrible. And what was the chemistry like between you and Mae West?
Oh, Mae loved me.
Oh, really?
Not.
Nuts.
Yeah, actually, there's a wonderful story in the book about Mae. What time is it anyway?
ahead.
Am I ever going to sign any books?
No, we're okay. We're good.
There's so many stories, I could never get to them all. But Mae, well, you know, I went to meet Mae. This is actually not in the book. There's another story in the book that's really choice, so I'll let you read that when you... But with the first time I met Mae, I had to go to the producer and I said, I would really love to meet Mae West, you know, before we start shooting. Do you think that might be possible? He said, I'll have to call and see. I'll have to call Stanley Musgrove and see if we can get an appointment. And I said, oh, okay. So they said, yes, she will have tea in the penthouse at Rossmore, the building, the Rossmore Towers, which was on Rossmore, which was actually Vine Street that went down south. And you don't need to know all of this. But anyway, and so I go over there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to have tea with Mae, and I'm really excited and everything. I'm going to meet her, and went up to the penthouse and went into this salon there, and as I said, it was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was California. It was very bright, but not inside Mae's apartment. It was not bright. It was, all the blinds were drawn, and it was quite dimly lit. And they asked me if I would wait for Mae. So I was waiting and waiting. and waiting. And while I was waiting, I thought, I wonder why everything has got this sort of mauve hue in here. It's kind of pinkish, isn't it? White furniture with a kind of pink glow, and white tables, and kind of a white piano with a kind of pinkish glow. And so I kind of looked into one of the, under the lampshade, and there was a pink 25-watt bulb in this lampshade. And I thought, oh, she's got the apartment lit special just for her. And so finally she appeared, and she was really quite amazing. I mean, she had a long white peignoir on and a white, like colored wig, and, completely made up and everything. And she came out and she went, oh, and walked across the room just like you thought Mae West would walk. And I thought, but you mean she's like that all the time? And she sat down, and I said, oh, Miss West, I'm so excited to meet you. I mean, you're a living legend, and you saved Paramount Studios, and I read all about you. I've seen all your movies. And she said, yes. Oh. And what did you say your name was? So that was Mae, and she was amazing. She only worked she would work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when she started her day.
Really?
Yes.
What specific moment do you consider to represent?
But she was 77. She never had made a color movie before, Myra Breckenridge, so I kind of felt, well, okay,
It's impressive, actually.
let her work at 5 then.
What was the highlight of your career, would you say?
Oh, I can't have just one highlight.
Okay.
There's so many great moments that I felt wonderful about, and so many. I mean, what about the first time you meet Jimmy Stewart, and Dean Martin, and I don't know, Frank Sinatra and Richard Burton, and you just even get to work with those people, and the first time that I don't know, ride horses on camera when you've never ridden a horse before in your life. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's just wonderful. It's always an adventure.
So it's been a wonderful, wonderful
It's
ride.
been a fabulous life. And you're traveling all over the world all the time, all these different countries, and even working in different languages. I made movies even in French. Yes, I did. I made a movie in French with Jean-Paul Belmondo, Yeah.
As an icon, if you would give advice to women in society where femininity has gotten so diluted, what would that advice be? You have a lot to say on that.
Yeah. I feel like, and I write about it in the book, I feel like perhaps justifiably women have a kind of legacy of resentment. Deep down underneath, we feel like we've been kind of pushed down for centuries and centuries, and now we're finally able to have so many opportunities that in Grecian and Roman times the women could never even dream of. But somehow we feel less than, and I just wish that it wasn't so. I mean, I saw my mother feeling that way, and I kind of just made a decision that I was never going to take that attitude, that being a woman was a fabulous thing. It was just amazing, and that we made the world go around. We were the reason, the raison d'etre for the rest of for mankind, to even, get busy with themselves so that they could win our favor and that they could win a fabulous woman. It's what makes the, life worth living is us. That's the way I see it. We're the ones carrying the womb. We give birth, we make it beautiful, we make it exciting, we make it, comfortable and entertaining and gentle and sexy and, all these wonderful things we can do. And I just, I think it's a fabulous role to play, isn't it?
And you talk a lot in the book about the ways in which you have, in a sense, almost managed, enhanced your femininity, you know, what you do with makeup, what you do with hair, what women can do as they move along in the life cycle and age about those things or with those things. And you clearly enjoy it immensely.
Well, I'm an actress, you know, so, you know, I'm interested in dress up, and I know that part of being a woman is to, you know, be decorative in a way and to be, you know, attractive, and that it makes us feel better about ourselves in a way. It's not the only thing that we have to offer, but, you know, of course, for me, it's one of the major things because that's my kind of career. It's my job, so to speak. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't expect every woman to make that choice. I actually put a lot of things in there that I think relate to women and what they're interested in, but it wasn't that, I mean, you know, there's about how to dress, you know, a personal style, how to develop your personal style, about makeup, about hair, about exercise, about diet, about menopause, about the joys of menopause, and about some of the experiences I had, you know, going through menopause, which were pretty hair-raising, and difficult and emotionally challenging. But I think that women are many things, and so I try to relate to everything that was important to women in this book. I thought I'll cover every base I can, and about relationships with men, and about dating, and about dating younger men. And
Is that something that appeals to you?
not so much, but I have been there, and you know, I think it's sort of, you know, it's okay, but it's not any, you know, it's not nothing all that. It's not all that. I don't know, maybe Demi would say differently, but I just think that it's about the person. It doesn't matter whether they're younger or older or the same age. I think the compatibility, the respect, and the way that you're going to travel in life, if there's some kind of sameness there and there's some kind of complicity that you have with the partner that you pick, that's the most important thing. And I think we're all looking for a partner in a way, but it can be your friends too. I don't think that you don't have to be defined by a member of the opposite sex, for men or women. I think it can be just about having companionship in life with those people that you work with those people who are your friendlies, and with those people that you meet in all kinds of different activities. And I don't feel comfortable, you know, with a young guy who doesn't know, you know, the geography of a woman. And I talk a little bit about that because, you know, sometimes you think that they have it, you know, all down, and they really don't.
Yeah. Yes.
So you have to engage in a little tutorial.
So, I mean, it sounds like you're still a romantic. You would still, like, finding love, and in the romantic sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, I am a romantic.
Yes.
But, you know, it's only one part of me. And I'm not like, I don't feel like, oh, I have to have a man. Oh, where is he? I don't feel that.
That's a good thing.
I don't.
No,
I mean,
listen, you're more
but
likely
I
to-
think that some women are actually programmed to think that unless they have a man in their life that's verifying that they're worth something, that they're not worth anything. I think the time that you spend by yourself, it might be painful time. Sometimes it was for me, because at one point in my 50s, I thought, you know, from the time that you were in love with Jim Welch, you have gone from one husband to the next husband, and then there were the in-between guys that, you know, long relationship with that one, and then another husband, and then another long relationship that led to another long relationship, and then another husband. And when have you had any time to yourself? And I realized, oh, I'm scared of the time I might spend with myself. I'm going to have to face myself. I'm going to have to just sit there with myself and go, so why aren't you happy? What is wrong with you? You know, why are you so miserable about what? And it's that you're using other people to make yourself feel good about yourself, because you don't want to face yourself. You don't want to say, what is it that I really would love to do? Who are the people I really want to be with? If I don't have anybody I want to be with, where is it that I might like to go for myself? And then I might meet somebody that's in that place because I'm doing something that I like to do. But you know, I feel that we are hooking up with other people to save us and rescue us from ourselves. And I think you have to be okay with yourself in order to attract the right people. And that means that you have a little work to do with you and you. And it's not so bad there.
Yeah, very good.
And I guess you need to be, at least I needed to be a little older in order to come to that. And
Well, some people never come to that.
Well, I may be a slow learner because I guess there are some people who do, but I came to that in my 50s and I thought, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Whew. I'm friendly now with myself and I think I'm okay. Definitely not perfect and not the way I might like to be, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I see my limitations and I think I can accept that.
So we have time for one more question, and then then the conversation can continue. You're going to sign books afterwards.
Yes. And anything I didn't talk about is pretty much here, because I wrote everything but the kitchen sink, and I did write it myself.
Yeah.
All of it.
So before we depart, there's a question about your goal for the next 10 years.
A goal?
Your goal is, in other words, where do you see yourself heading in these next 10 years?
I don't know.
Okay. And that's
I don't know.
okay.
Do we have to have goals like
no,
that?
We don't.
At 70, do we need a goal?
Goal, no. Although, with the life you've led, it would, I mean, you've been so goal-oriented.
No, I'm doing it as it, I'm letting it flow.
As it comes. Good
Going
for
with
you.
the flow. It occurred to me, I have a few things that I've lived and a few things to say. I might just like to write it.
Yeah.
And I used to love to write before I won the first beauty contest. That's what I like to do. And then I got totally distracted with it,
And your secrets for staying beautiful through the decades? Because there are many questions about that.
It's all in there.
It's all in there. All right.
It's all in there.
You need this, so it's all in there. It has really been.
Yeah, but I wouldn't look good if I wasn't interested in life and other people, and if I hadn't come to some kind of peace with myself. And so I know that sounds like pap, but it is true. And then all the other, bells and whistles are here.
It doesn't sound like pap. It sounds quite believable.
But, all the other bells and whistles are right here.
All right.
Yep.
Then you will have to come and see if you want to see how you're going to stay beautiful. You're going to come afterwards and come see. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you so much.
You're great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.